Hey, puppy. Smile so you can be on camera. Yeah, yeah. I wanted to redo the story of what I heard back in 2003 at Raspberry Lake. In 2003, four guys I worked with and myself went backpacking into Raspberry Lake and Preston Peak. They were going to climb Preston Peak the next day. My knee was bothering me, so I was just going to stay around the camp. My good friend Rick brought 3 backpack goats that he had just purchased. He'd never taken them on a trip before, so he wasn't sure how they were going to do. We got up to the trailhead and started hiking in. It ended up being about a 4.5 hour hike. The goats lagged behind everyone, and I lagged behind the goats. And it was pretty cool because every time I would stop to take a breath, one of the last goat in line would stop and wait for me. And when I caught up to that goat, it would head off again and join the other goats. And if I stopped, it would stop and wait for me. Anyway, we got in there, we camped, and we camped right alongside of the lake. And like back in 2003, it was just lush old growth forest. I've looked at Google Earth now, and it looks like a lot of the area has burned since then, which is really sad. So those guys got up early in the morning and headed up to summit Preston Peak, which is in the background here, if you can see it. They went up to summit. I slept in, and I don't know how many hours after they left, I was sound asleep, and something all of a sudden was in my face, scared the shit out of me. I woke up and it was one of the goats. The goat had chewed through its leash. My friend Rick had him on leashes, tied up. This one goat chewed through his leash and came over and was licking my face and woke me up. So I got up and I tied him back up. I wasn't ready to get up yet. I tied him back up and I went back to bed. And just a couple minutes later, he was in my face again. Once he learned how to chew through those ropes, it took him 2 seconds and he was back in my face. So I got up, built a little fire, had breakfast, went fly fishing, and caught a few trout, and got about 11:30 in the morning, and I just started getting bored. So out of the backside of the lake, I'll put some pictures in here of the lake if I can find some. The lake is like a bowl, and I looked, it's 1,000 feet tall on one side of just sheer cliffs on one side. But the other side, I think it's to the west probably, is old growth forest. And there's a creek that comes out of the lake and goes down through the old growth forest. So I thought, it didn't look too bad. It wasn't too steep, even though my knee was bugging me. I had it wrapped. I thought, you know, I could hike down this creek. There was a game trail down next to the creek, and it was really open back and through there. You could see for a long ways. So I started hiking. I think it was about 11:30 in the morning. Started hiking. All I had a canteen with water. I carried a 38, 5-shot 38 lightweight handgun, and I think I had some power bars or something to eat, snack on. So I got down there about an hour and a half. It was pretty easy going down. Well, all of a sudden I turned around and I looked up and I went, oh, now I gotta go all the way back up. It didn't look, so doable going back up. So I crossed the creek, started heading up on the other side. The minute I started heading up, I heard what it sounded exactly like a goat. I mean, ba, 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 goat. The first thought through my head was, those damn goat chewed through his leash, and he followed me all the way down that trail for an hour and a half. And I thought, oh shit. And all of a sudden, it started screaming. I mean, it sounded like a woman screaming. It was just a ear-piercing, high-pitched scream. And I thought, oh crap, a cougar has got one of those goats. And it just kept screaming and screaming. And then it went into a really, really, really deep, guttural growl. I mean, not like a bear growl. This was like, it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. It was a deep, deep, loud growl. And I could see up the hill, I would guess, thinking back, I would guess I could easily see 100 feet through the trees. I couldn't see anything. And it was loud. It was like it was right next to me. And then it started screaming again, a high-pitched scream. And it went back and forth, scream, growl, scream, growl. And then it started talking in a gibberish, a really deep, guttural gibberish. I mean, it was like, like that. I mean, and again, the hair standing up on the back of my frickin' neck. And I didn't know what it was. It never occurred to me about Bigfoot. I mean, I don't know why. I've thought about Bigfoot in my life. It just didn't occur to me that it was Bigfoot. And I just screamed as loud as I could. I had hunkered down and I had my gun in my hand and I hunkered down and I was looking up. I didn't see anything. It kept going on and on. Finally, I just screamed as loud as I could. I went, hey, 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 like that. And it just stopped. And I sat there and I never saw anything again, never heard anything again. So all the way back up to the camp, I'm kind of looking over my shoulder every so often. I get up there and through the day, as the day wears on and I'm there all by myself, there was nobody else up there. No other backpackers or anything around the lake. Throughout the day, I started thinking, oh shit, Bigfoot. I mean, when those guys came back off the mountain that night, they got back after dark and I told them my story. All of them, none of them believed me but Rick. The other one said it was a bear. I've heard bear. It wasn't a bear. The other guy said it was a cougar. I've heard cougar. It wasn't a cougar. The one guy said it was a wolverine. So I came home and I looked up wolverine. I listened to wolverines. It was not a wolverine. I don't know what it was. It wasn't a person. It was not electronically amplified. There was nobody there. Nobody could get their voices that high and that low and that loud from that distance without me seeing them. It freaked me out. The more all these years later, it's almost, next year it'll be 20 years. It just has always freaked me out. Somehow a guy named David Paulides found me. Actually, I don't know if he found me or if I emailed him, but in 2009 he wrote a book. 2009 he wrote a book, Tribal Bigfoot, and he put my story in there. At the very end, he said whatever I heard, said hey, which that's the only thing he got wrong. Anyway, a couple years later, I think it was like 2011, I was watching a 2-hour Bigfoot movie episode, whatever, TV show about Bigfoot. And they were in Russia and they were interviewing an old man. And up to that point, I had never ever heard of Bigfoot making a gibberish talk. I'd never heard that. I think there was something out there, you know, back in that time period on the internet or something, but I had never heard that. And this old man, he said he had heard and seen Bigfoot, and he mimicked Bigfoot almost exactly what I heard. And it just freaked me out. I thought, I'm not the only person that's heard this. Hang on. Potential spam. Fuckers. Anyway, it freaked me out to know that the gibberish thing was something that other people had heard. I've never been back up there. I've always wanted to go, but I mean, it's 20 years ago. I was what, 42 or 46. Yeah. And I still want to go. I'm trying to get a buddy of mine to go up there with me, and now I've got my drone. I didn't have drones back in those days, and I bought an audio recorder, and I bought some night vision the other day, and I'd love to go back up. I know what I heard. I wish to this day that I wouldn't have said anything, that I would have just sat there so I could have seen what I heard. Because if I had really seen it with my own two eyes, I would go try to prove it, but I mean, even though in my mind I'm 99.9% sure there's nothing else I could have heard. What could it have been? There's nothing. I have friends that worked in the Forest Service for 35 years. They don't believe in Bigfoot. They never saw anything. They never heard anything. But I mean, whatever I heard was really freaky. So I just wanted to do this. Hopefully the sound's a little better and the video's a little better. And I'll try to put some pictures and stuff of Preston. And anyway, see how this turns out. I guess I can always redo it again.